Hello and welcome to War Room for Courageous Wives, and I'm here to give you your daily marriage confession and affirmation. I want to remind you, all of our listeners and myself, that our husbands are not our enemies. We're on the same team. You're on the same team with your husband. I'm on the same team with my husband. A good way to think about it is a football team. Imagine a football team playing against themselves instead of the opposing team. They'll never make it into any league playing like that. And honestly, it just doesn't even make sense and it looks crazy. So every time we disrespect our husbands, knowing or unknowingly, we are disrespecting ourselves and God. We have to intentionally, be mindful of what we're saying, how we're saying it, and be mindful that we need to always respect our husbands, and be mindful that we're playing for the same team. We're not playing against each other. When you do that, you become the barrier that stops the both of you from uprooting whatever is actually causing the confusion between the two of you. Strive to strengthen your bond because there's power in duo, as the Bible teaches us. In this way, you and your husband will be able to say at the end of the day, at the end of, a disagreement or, an argument, you'll be able to say, we both win. You're not walking away thinking, oh my gosh, he thought he got over on me or him thinking the same thing, because that's not, what we're trying to do here. You'll walk away knowing that the enemy, the true enemy, has been defeated. We always have to be mindful that, when we're with our husbands, we're on the same team and we both have the same enemy, who is Satan, the devil. That is the true enemy. Therefore, the both of us, we shouldn't allow the enemy to have any access to what we're building. As a married couple, I'm pretty sure you have goals, you have things you're trying to accomplish for your family, for your life, for your children, for your legacy. So don't allow the enemy to take you off of that, because he's trying to. He is the real enemy and he is your real opposer. It's not your husband. You and your husband are playing for the same team with the same goal in mind, or should be. If you don't think of it that way, it opens up the door for the enemy's devices, whether it's lashing out, putting up a defense wall. If your husband points out a character flaw or a habit that's not conducive to what you're building, try not to go into attack mode. Be intentional about hearing what they're trying to say, and ask God to give you patience and understanding, understanding that you need to hear about yourself. Ouch. I know that's a hard pill to swallow and that kind of hurts, but it's the truth. That's how we grow. You ask God, help me to understand what my husband is trying to say, because none of us are perfect. Us as wives, we're not perfect and our husbands aren't perfect. So there's things that we do that probably irritate the death out of them that aren't adding to what you're trying to build. And plus, to be honest, love is not about hearing someone tell you they love you 24/7 or how wonderful you are 24/7. You can never grow in that kind of environment. You want to grow, and I don't know about you, but I've always heard this saying that marriage is designed to make you holy, to bring us closer to God, to make us more like Him. Every day we're chipping away at ourselves to make us more like God and to help us to love like He loves. God chose us as wives to be He chose us to give our husbands the best example of His love, And sometimes, and that's the same for them as well. But and sometimes that isn't going to mean that we are going to be told that, that they love us all day and we're just so wonderful. Sometimes, it's going to be some growing pains in there, which is good because, like I said, we're chipping away at our flesh so that we can become more spiritual, so that we can learn something out of this. I think I mentioned before that, if you're praying and you say, oh my gosh, he's not changing, the situation isn't changing, it's because pretty much God is trying to change something in you. He's trying to change your perspective, to make you the wife that he called you to be, and we have to also remember to always let God's grace guide us. God's grace and mercy, because grace doesn't mean that we're going to make excuses for our husbands, like toxic behavior or something like that. But grace allows us to put ourselves in their shoes, even when we feel like the weight of our shoes are already too much, what I'm saying, our own shoes. Grace is going to allow you to put yourself in both positions as a wife, and then to say, hey, maybe, put myself in my husband's shoes so I can see where he's coming from, so I can change my perspective. Grace also allows us to remember that we're on the same team, and to realize who our real enemy is. And grace allows us to change our perspective and see our husband through God's eyes, and love the way God intended us to love. Hello, courageous wives. Before we get to our confession for today, I do have to interrupt. I'm so sorry, but you will thank me later, because I'm here to tell you about this amazing platform, Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. So if you're like me and you have a lot to say, or you have a lot in your mind and you just want to get it off your chest, maybe starting a podcast is something that you can do too. It's free. There's creation tools that allows you to record, distribute, and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will also help you distribute your podcast so that you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so many more. You can make money from your podcast with minimum listenership. I mean, that's super cool, right? Especially if you're just starting out like me. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Okay, back to it. We all know that Satan hates marriage. I've said that so many times already on this podcast. But there's one thing about the hard, the not getting your own way, the crying, the waiting up at night, the working through it, the hard decisions, the hard times. It can be so worth it. Satan wants to convince you that the hard part of marriage, the difficult times, is the beginning to the end. But in reality, it can be the heartbeat of your marriage. It can be the part that restores your faith in changing hearts and transforms people. The part that shows you how awesome our God really is. And he is truly amazing and awesome. And I see that more and more every day as I'm praying for my marriage, as I'm praying for my husband, as I'm doing my affirmations. I see God's hand working more and more. And I feel like the hard part of your marriage, like I said, it can be the heartbeat. It can be, what really shows you and has you to experience God. And that he might be able to refine and redeem, even us as wives, as I mentioned earlier. God can turn the hard and difficult times into grace, compassion, empathy, understanding. He can use it to stand away our sharp edges and turn the ugly parts and the broken parts and the crusty, callous parts of our hearts and make them smooth again. Not necessarily new, but better hearts, even more closely resemble to his, which is the whole goal. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you've ever heard that saying before, but marriage is meant to make us holy, to make us more like our Father. Your spouse, I want to stress this, your spouse is not your enemy. I don't care how hard it may be right now. He's not your enemy. So stick it to the real enemy by not giving up on your spouse. And one of the best advice that I was given from a wise counsel for my marriage was to pray like your marriage is ending, even before it is. Like right now, pray right now, pray during the good times, do these affirmations and confessions during the good times. I've been fasting for about, I think 26 days now. And as I'm coming to the end of my fast, I was thinking, what more can I learn? I've been learning so much. My heart feels refreshed. My spirit feels so light. I feel so at peace. I've learned so much. I feel like I've grown so much. I've seen God's hand work in so many places in my life during this fast, especially my marriage. And I'm like, what can I continue to do? And God placed it on my heart that be intentional. Continue to be intentional about praying. Be intentional about speaking life. Be intentional about not necessarily not speaking right away, being slow to speak, slow to anger, guarding my heart, guarding my mouth, allowing God to work for me and to rest, being intentional in those things. And I actually ran across a really cool really cool app, and this is not an ad, was what I was going to say, you may know it, it's called Prayminder, and it helps you remember to pray throughout the day. As wives, we need to be constantly in prayer. Today's confession is, according to Proverbs 12:4, I am a crown for my husband's head. I bring him wisdom and honor all the days of my life.